Comedy legend Louis Black is bringing Goodbye Yeller Brick Road, the final tour, to Steelhouse on Sunday, February 25th. Tickets go on sale Friday, November 17th at 10 a.m. Get yours at steelhouseomaha.com.
The holidays start here at Baker's with a variety of options to celebrate traditions old and new. Whether you're making a traditional roasted turkey or spicy turkey tacos, your go-to shrimp cocktail, or your first Cajun risotto, Baker's has all the freshest ingredients to embrace your traditions. Baker's, fresh for everyone.
Choose from a great selection of digital coupons and use them up to 5 times in one transaction. Check our app for details. Baker's, fresh for everyone.
Hey, it's Storyworthy. Today on the show, comedian Belinda Carroll tells a fabulous story about how she came out.
So my mom goes to the bachelorette party like the night before the wedding, and she comes home and she brings me, she has no idea that I'm gay this time. She brings me a Chippendales poster because they went to go see the Chippendales. And so she brings me a poster and she thinks she's being the cool mom. She's like, oh yeah, I'm the coolest mom. And she sits down in front of my bedroom. And I come out and she goes, I got you a Chippendales poster from the bachelorette party. And I burst into tears and I ran to the bathroom.
Today on the show, comedian Belinda Carroll talks about how she came out and the gay rights movement. Stay close.
Hey, it's Belinda Carroll and you're listening to Storyworthy.
Welcome to Storyworthy. My name is Christine Blackburn, and I'm coming to you from Los Angeles, California. Whether you're a longtime fan of the show of almost 13 years, or you're a new listener, welcome to Storyworthy. Now, I hope you guys enjoyed the show last week, which was a still Storyworthy episode, meaning that it was a repeat. Can you say repeat? I mean, it makes it sound like it wasn't good. It was an excellent show from 5 years ago with Albert Corrado. And Albert is the brother of Melly Corrado, who was gunned down at the Trader Joe's here in Los Angeles. So it's a tragic story about, his sister being gunned down by the LAPD. And it's interesting, and I think it's an important story. So go back, you guys. Listen to Albert last week talking about his sister and Trader Joe's, but not today. Stick with me now because today I'm here with another fabulous talent who I've never met this girl before, Belinda Carroll, but I know you're in Portland, right?
No. I'm in Los Angeles.
Oh, you're in LA.
Yeah. I just moved here a year ago. That's why.
That's it. You know what? I was wondering because I saw you on some shows here and I thought, oh, well, she must have been visiting. But you're right here in LA. Awesome. Well, I'm happy to meet you, Belinda.
Thanks. I'm happy to meet you too.
Yeah. Now, my buddy Paul Lander is the one who turned me on to you. And Paul has helped me out with a lot of guests here on Storyworthy. He just happens to know everybody. I don't know how that is, but that dude knows everybody. And Paul said, you got to talk to Belinda Carroll. And I said, okay, I will. And so thank you very much for coming on the show. And are you from Portland?
Yeah. So I was born and raised in Portland. Oh, I actually moved to Austin and I lived in Texas for like 5 or 6 years. And then I moved back to Portland and then I've been in Portland for the last like 12 years.
I see.
Yeah.
Because I know that you have roots in West Virginia and I'm from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, which is, we're really close to West Virginia. I had friends in, Youngstown and Weirton. These all seem so far away now. But you do have like kind of that country roots thing, right?
Yeah. Well, my mom was from West Virginia. And so my entire family on my mom's side's back there. And my mom was from a little tiny town called Hurricane, West Virginia. And so she moved to Oregon in 1963. So I was born very definitely in Oregon, but I was raised all with people that were originally from West Virginia.
Yeah. Did you go back there when you were a kid?
Yeah, we actually went back and visited my granddad, and we were there for like a few weeks. which was a trip.
I mean, it's just such a specific place. It's very different than the rest of the country, I think.
Oh, it is. Yeah. And my grandfather, so, my grandfather looked at my mom and he goes, I don't understand a word she's saying because I spoke so fast. But he had a farm and hound dogs that like lived outside that were hunting dogs. And so we'd go to church and like, I'd have to try to figure out whatever he was saying. It sounded like a different language. And this is back before, the internet. And so regional accents were thick. Like it wasn't just like now you hear people, I've heard people, like on TikTok and stuff, and everybody has kind of the Midwest, accent now because we all can hear it all the time. But man, then it was not that way. It was just, they were backwoods, Appalachia,
they had different words. Different words for things.
Yeah. It was like going to a different country, honestly,
Yeah. They lived in hollers. That's what they're called. Hollers.
Yeah. Well, my mom was born in Turkey Holler, actually. So, yeah.
Whoa, that is so funny.
Yeah.
Wow, that's so interesting. All right, so today you bring forth the topic, Please Say Gay, which is clearly in reference to that jackass down in Florida who is, basically rewriting history. He's not allowing children to learn. I mean, it doesn't even seem like part of our country. His laws, his ideas are so insane. So you bring forth the topic, Please Say Gay. So I'm anxious to hear your story. But before we get to that, I did want to mention you are the founder of the Portland Queer Comedy Festival, which tell me about that, because that's a big deal. Tell me how you started that.
So I started Portland Queer Comedy Festival in 2017. Mm-hmm. And essentially Trump had just won and we were dealing with the beginnings of all of what's happening now. And so I had been a producer for comedy shows and festivals for 10 years. And so I started with a Pride show that I did in Portland at Curious Comedy Theater. And so every Pride I would bring in a big gay headliner and then we would have a big show and like whatever. And so when that happened, it kind of was the catalyst for me to go, we need to have a festival. And so I created this festival and it's 5, it'll be coming back, but it'll be coming back under a different name. We'll get to that. But it's 5 days, 5 venues, and then like 30 shows. And so I'd bring in 10 big headliners and then like 40 lesser known headliners, up and comers, if you will.
Comics.
Yeah. And so we just do, stand-up shows. So what I didn't know at the time, though, then we had the first festival. It was off the hook. It was amazing. And then about 2 or 3 months later, I got written up in the New York Times. And it was the first time, it was the Sunday travel section. And the first time that a first-year festival had ever been written up in the New York Times. And I was like, oh, that's crazy. And so that was insane. Like I opened up my Google alert and it was like, whatever. And I was like, the Times. And then I thought somebody had another comic had mentioned it or something. And that was even exciting. And then I realized that it was like a 2,000 word review. And I was like, oh,
Wow. Yeah. That's amazing.
But I didn't know this at the time until a few years later, like right before I moved to LA, I got contacted by these Russian feminist comedians that are doing feminist stand-up in Russia. And so they're in St. Petersburg, Russia. And so they had contacted me because they were doing a study about feminist comedy with Goethe University in Frankfurt, Germany. And so they wanted to talk to me about the festival. And so I found out at that time that the festival was the only one that's happened in the world. It's been multi-stage, multi-day, like a fully fledged queer festival. And so, so that was kind of crazy. So, so that happened. And then, so I had the festival for 3 years. And then, of course, COVID happened.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Oh, well, it'll come back. Why are you changing the name?
Because what I'm going to do is it's going to be called Rose City Queer Fest. Mm-hmm. And what I'm doing is I'm actually incorporating stand-up comedy and also music and also improv and also burlesque because when I first off because I'm involved in all of those areas, right? But also because when I was doing the festival, I'd get emails from people that weren't stand-ups. Like, I've got a one-person show and I love it and like whatever.
Yeah.
And so I got enough of those that I figured that it's time to have like a full
variety
queer fest.
show.
Yeah,
it's a variety. That's so fun. That's really exciting. Are you drinking a sugar-free Red Bull?
I am.
I drink those too, and it's disgusting. Why do we do this to ourselves? What are we doing?
My roommate one time, I was taking my Red Bull cans out of the car, and I was taking them to the garbage, and he goes, "Belinda, how many energy drinks is that?" And I was like, "Listen, I'm ADD, and so I need all of the stimulant I can get to pay attention."
Them. You know, when I have Red Bulls is on a show day. I really like, because I'm not going to drink coffee at 7:00 at night.
Yeah.
Or, you know what I mean? I don't want to drink coffee. It's hot. I'll sweat. I'm in makeup or something. So I'll go with the sugar-free Red Bull. But it really is gross. It's like, ooh, taurine. Anyway, yeah, I am so impressed by how much you've done. I'm going to Portland this weekend, and that's why I was thinking, oh, maybe you're there. Maybe you know of gigs.
I can hook you up with people that run shows there for sure.
Oh, good. We'll talk about that later. We don't have to bother everybody about that right now. But let me ask you. So you are also a drag queen performer, correct?
Well, I have been. I got a Miss Leather title when I was in my early 20s.
Wow.
And then I did, and then I was Miss Leather I was Miss Leather for 2 years because of the second year. So I was supposed to only be Miss Leather for 1 year, but in the second year, the person that won got disqualified because, they had a rather scandalous stage show for their for their investments,
their talent or whatever. Yeah.
No. When you first win a title, you have an investment, which is like where you like name your people that you're working with and stuff. Cause it's essentially like a fundraising spot, right? So the whole point is that you're throwing shows to raise money for AIDS charities and whatever. And so my person the person that won right after me, had a very scandalous, stage show for their investments. And so they got stripped. And so I ended up Miss Leather for 2 years. So
that's hilarious. Yeah. So it's like, well, now I'll have to step up and take the lead
and do it again. And so, and then, at the time I was performing at the Embers, which was a drag club in Portland. Yeah. So I did that for a long time. But then, after I kind of left the Embers world, I didn't really do, drag anymore. Now it's kind of, I can't remember the last time I did drag, but I have been a drag performer.
Yeah. And it's so interesting, the community. They've got such a great community, sometimes or a lot of the time, the performers, because right down the street from me is the Lyric Hyperion, and they had drag queen brunch for years there. And it's such a great community of people and just super fun and, a lot of laughs and, very like the opposite of threatening. So the fact that they could have, trying to enact these laws in, where is it, North Carolina, South Carolina, somewhere, it's just so preposterous. It's so crazy that people are afraid of clothes.
Well, it's Tennessee is the drag band.
Tennessee, yeah.
And the funny thing about that is that the lieutenant governor for Tennessee, who was one of the people behind the bill to ban drag in Tennessee, has recently, and just like in the last few days, been caught commenting on Twink boys, little a twink is like very young gay men who are very like hairless and smooth and like they're very and he got caught commenting on their Twitters. Like
is
on they're like
so fabulous. Could that not be more fabulous?
It's just such they're so hypocritical and they're like
so hypocritical. And the louder they scream, the more guilty they are of whatever they're shouting about.
Exactly. And what I think is that that guy saw a drag show and thought that the drag show made him gay. And so now he's like, get rid of it. I really think this. I think that they think that the exposure to the thing is what makes them the thing. And so they think that, and this is their thinking. And I know this because I was raised evangelical. We'll get into that in a minute. But I was raised in an evangelical Christian household. And I believe that what they think is that if they get rid of the stimuli of gay people or fun, that they will, that will prevent people from becoming trans, or that will prevent people from becoming drag queens or whatever.
And they're talking about photographs. I mean, it's censorship.
Oh, no, it's absolute censorship. And the thing is with the Florida thing is that really like kind of scares me is that yesterday they extended the Don't Say Gay thing to high school because it was supposed to be only until third grade. They'd say, oh, we're just saying like, let's not talk to tiny kids about it or whatever. No, now they've extended to high school, and now teachers can't have pictures of their partners in their classroom.
I read that. I read that.
They can't talk about.
It's just insane.
It's ridiculous, and it's not only censorship; it's oppression, and it's fascism.
In puberty, where they need information most, they say no, you can't talk about it. It's so preposterous. Like sometimes I want to sit down with one of those people and say, come on. Or you just let down your guard. You're jagging me, right? You're totally jagging me because you can't possibly mean this. Or like sit down with one of their wives and say like, look at you now. Look, Willie, please, I'd like to talk to you. Honestly, what are you thinking? You know, like I've never really, I guess because I don't really have any friends that are to the right. I mean, I really don't. They've all kind of gone away. Like I can't engage. I'm not one of those people that say, oh, you got to go out there, you get engaged. No, I don't. If they don't want to come to, this century or this year, I have too much else to do and life is so short.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the thing is that, so when I came out in 1993 and I was very, very young. And, I was one of the youngest people I know that came out during that period. And now it happens all the time. But, when I came out, it was still the same thing. It was the AIDS crisis was, like 10 years old at that time. And, there was just a ton of negativity about the gay community in the media and stuff. I mean, just openly talking about Measure 9, which was a divisive gay measure in Oregon that would have put homosexuality in the Constitution and put it on par with like bestiality, pedophilia, that kind of thing. Yeah. And legally it would have been, oh God. Okay. So legally it would have been, a whole thing. Right. And so,
sure.
So defeating that was very important. And so, we did defeat it, but that's one of the ways that kind of the tide in Oregon turned, toward being LGBTQ, being okay is because of Measure 9, because it brought all the ugliness out into the open and people are like, wait a minute, this is not what I want to be about,
Yeah.
And so that really helped. So what I'm hoping is that this period in time where you have this select few people that are so rabidly homophobic, who also happen to be in positions of power, that they get defeated and then we come to even a better and bigger understanding insofar as trans issues. Cause that's really the thrust right now. Yeah. Cause nobody blinks when you're gay anymore. You're just like, oh, I can even just not come out to people and just talk about an ex and be like, oh, and so she blah, blah, blah. And they just like take it in.
Yeah. Nobody thinks twice.
Yeah. They just take it in and go, oh, she's gay. And then they just move on. There's no shock.
Well,
there's no,
of course not.
But now it's with trans people. And so,
right.
So that's really kind of got me pretty worried because of the fact that, it's just kind of been rabid. Like there's been, like 413-ish anti-LGBTQ bills introduced, since January. And it's just, God. it's such a crazy thing because it's like, what's happening is that, there's all these school shootings and like mass shootings like every day. And all these people are getting killed, but they're focusing on queer people and trying to put the onus
on it. Yeah.
Well, the reason this is happening, and it's been like this forever. Like we've had like hurricanes, and they were like, oh, it's because of the homosexuals, like Pat Robertson and stuff.
Right.
And but that's the thing is that that's what they're doing as far as taking the attention off these school shootings is by dragging gay people into the spotlight and being like, this is wrong. This is why everything's going to shit,
So as an activist, do you have to talk with those people? Like, do you have to actually try to sit down and share ideas with people that are completely insane?
No.
Yeah.
I haven't for a really long time. So I grew up Southern Missionary Baptist, and my mom was really Christian. Like we had a Bible on the shelf that we weren't allowed to put anything on, and we went to church every Sunday and sometimes Wednesday.
God.
Oh yeah. And I grew up like in Bible study and like whatever. At one point she decided to become Mormon. Maybe I'll talk about that for my story.
Wow.
And so because she couldn't find a church that was like strict enough for her, because she grew up in West Virginia in the Southern Missionary Baptist Church. And so she decided to become Mormon for a while.
Some people really thrive on having those sorts of rules and, that sort of, it's almost like like the military. I mean, there's just a set of guidelines and you can't do this and you can't do this. So they find it easier to live when they know they can't do certain things. Like it just makes the world smaller. And that's what they want.
And I think that, yes, and it's a sense of like, it's a social safety blanket. And so, the thing is with people that are like that, I feel is that they want everything to be like super cookie cutter. They want to know that when they get up, these are the things that are going to happen. Yeah.
Very simple.
And nobody's going to surprise them with any new information. And like,
no.
And to a pathological extent. But they don't realize it's pathological because, they have a bunch of people that are in an echo chamber agreeing with them. So, because I've seen this because of the way I came out, like I've seen, people change. I've seen people become accepting. I've seen people, because it's very hard. It's easy to look at an amorphous group that you've othered and say, you're wrong. It's harder to look at an individual that you love and say you're wrong. And so that's the key.
Yeah, because it's their world. It's their network. I mean, you're saying leave your network and those people are fuckheads, and how are you going to take that? It's like, wait a minute, you're insulting my entire intelligence.
Yeah. Yeah. And the thing is that also like, you're right. They hang out in group. It's a society. It's a way of being. And so, which I mean, you can apply the same thing to being queer essentially, but, within that, like to leave that situation, you have to leave, just like the Westboro Baptist Church lady or people, Nathan Phelps and Mary Phelps and like those guys, they had to leave the Westboro Baptist Church. Like they had to leave, you have to leave your whole community. Like when I came out, I had to leave my whole community. Because there is no functioning within that. If you have a different opinion, there is no functioning within that microcosm. Like you just have to go.
Yeah, it's just so crazy. I mean, everybody create your own community and don't worry about the other people. I mean, what in the world? It goes back to if you don't want abortions, you don't like abortions, don't have an abortion. You don't have to go to a drag show. You don't have to, just shut the fuck up.
Yeah, but the thing is that they don't see it like that. They see it as a societal ill. So like within Christianity, the idea of sin is the idea of going to hell or going to heaven, right? So,
right.
And so their thing is they blame drag queens or gay people or trans people or whatever on everything else that's going on, like school shootings and rampant fentanyl overdoses and like all that stuff. They blame that, and it's a misdirected blame, right? We all know that, but it's a misdirected blame, but they blame that stuff on people being openly themselves, because in their head, in the Bible, it says, if you sin, you go to hell. So if people are being themselves and actually not fighting their urges and fighting their morality and like all that stuff, because there's a big battle, right? So everything within today's Christianity.
Yeah, there has to be a good and an evil. There has to be a good, there has to be an evil. They're the good, so then somebody has to be evil, or what's all our hell about? What's hell about if there's not somebody to send
exactly.
there?
And then also there's no leeway within those rules. So it's very black and white. Fire, brimstone, like very black and white. And when you're talking about those specific kinds of Christians, I'm not talking about all Christians, because some Christians actually do like embody like the principles of Christ and like whatever. But as far as leaving the Christ thing on the table, but yeah, that's the thing, is that they see so rigidly and so black and white. My mom one time told me she was at Woolworths. This is like in the 50s. So she was at Woolworths in Charleston, and she was with her mom. And so she must have been like 12 years old. And Elvis was on TV. And so she was watching the televisions, because at that point they didn't have a TV in the house. This is like at the beginning of TV. And so she's like watching Elvis on TV, and she was like, whatever. So at some point she was watching Elvis, and she started to try to dance like Elvis. She was like trying to figure out how he did it. And her mom reached over and slapped her right in the mouth. And she goes, no dancing. And that's it. And that's my mom. That's not my grandma. That's my mom. God. I know my mom had me when she was in her 40s, but still, like, she had me a lot older, but still, like, I mean, I'm talking about like, and so.
Wow.
And so that's
something
the thing.
else, man.
But that's what they want to get back to. They want to get back to women being in the kitchen with their babies, and they want to get back to people being forced into being essentially a child provider for their man. Yeah. And they want to get back to men being men and being the provider, even though that world never fucking existed.
I know. I don't mean to laugh. It's just, of course. I don't mean to laugh. It's just all so preposterous. I mean, it goes back to like, I just want to sit down and look at somebody and say, what is happening in your mind? Because
they need people of a lower socioeconomic background.
Right.
To create workers for them.
Yeah, so they can punch down. Yeah, they can punch down. But like, I don't feel like any of them are creative. It doesn't seem like any Republicans are creative. Like, apparently they can't like music because those are all Democrats. So they only have concerts with like the shittiest, Kid Rock and Lee Greenwood. Like, seriously, like I want to sit down and say to somebody like, don't you care about Neil Young? Like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Yeah. Like, there just seems to be such a division between artists and these conservatives. And like you said, there's no wiggle room for them.
Well, you can tell by their the quality of their websites that there's nobody creative anywhere.
Yeah, they're all so bad. Oh, yeah.
And I think that there might be something like brain-wise, like, there's just all sorts of stuff coming out in neuroscience about how everything works. And, I wouldn't be surprised to find out that there's a correlation between people that are, just extremely right-brained and conservatism. Like, it wouldn't surprise me at all. There was a study, and I'm shooting off the hip here, so I don't have the exact research, about people that have very conservative beliefs having a more active amygdala. And so they have a higher fight or flight. And so, and they think that might have something to do with, like, literally being afraid.
The stubbornness.
Well, and literally being afraid of things you don't know.
You don't
because
understand.
Because your amygdala goes off every time you see like two dudes kissing or whatever,
Can you believe that they can figure all that out now? Like, what they've done. I have a friend who's a brain surgeon. Thank you very much. No, but he studies, over at UCLA, and you're absolutely right. Like, he's looking for the, I don't know if it's the gene or the whatever in the brain that creates happiness. That's what he's researching. What creates happiness?
Yeah,
and
the
it's
section
just
of the brain, yeah.
Stunning. It's stunning what they're learning. It's really very interesting.
Oh, yeah. Well, neural mapping and all that stuff is really fascinating. Like I had an idea years ago, which maybe we're coming up on being able to do it, where I wanted to put electrodes and map comedians' brains as they told jokes to find out like what parts of the brain fire when you are telling jokes. Because the brain space that you're in when you're doing stand-up, and you know this, is so much different than any other brain space that you're in. Like anytime I'm performing, my brain goes into a completely different space than if I'm just like, hanging out and doing the thing.
The applause and the laughter are orgasms. I mean, frankly, you know what I mean? So what's doing that in the brain? It's the same thing.
Yeah,
I mean, it's that
it might be the same
much.
area.
I think it probably is. Hey, listen, I'm so excited that you're here, Belinda, and I'm really happy that Paul introduced us, and we're going to get your story. Please say gay in just a second, but before we do, I wanted to remind you guys, we are playing Story Smash, the storytelling game show with the Lyric Hyperion on May 20th, and oh boy, the dream team is back. That's right, Danny Zucker, Blanca Patch, Melissa Peterman are going to be there at the Lyric. The show is at 7:30, and you can go to storysmashshow.com for more information. Get your tickets. They're only $15, and you can also follow Story Smash over there on Instagram at Story Smash. I think you would love this show, Belinda. You would love it. It's so fun.
I'm down the street from Lyric. I live right off Hyperion, so I may be there. I'll try to see if I can.
I would love you to come. I would love you to come. All right, you guys. She's here right now. You hear her talking. Belinda Carroll. She is a comedian, a writer, and an activist, and she's also been a drag queen performer. Which I could never wear those shoes.
Oh, I lived in those shoes for like.
How did you do that?
From the time I was 20, probably from the time I was 20 till the time I was like 35, and then I had to give them up. Because I performed around drag queens. So when in fact, I'll tell the story but
you have to have some height. Yeah.
And also I just like learned how to dress for stage from drag queens.
Yeah. So fun.
There was no question that I would wear high heels. Wow. Although when I first started performing, I started performing at an underage gay club called the City Nightclub. And I started performing when I was like 16, 17. And so then I used to do more of a male drag, and I was very butch at the time. And I used to, and I still do, wear a lot of Doc Martens. And so I went back to the Doc Martens after.
Yeah. Well, they're so much more comfortable. It's not even funny. I have high heels. The shoes I almost wear every show are Uggs, but they're high heel Uggs. They look like sandals. They're just sandals. But people go, "Oh, where'd you get your shoes?" And they're Uggs. That's the answer. They're very comfortable.
Oh yeah, I've got a pair of Steve Maddens that are like a stack heel. Yeah, and those are great. Now, if I do a high heel, it's going to be like a stack. It's going to be like not a high heel. It'll just be
a wedge, or for sure, or a high heel tennis shoe. Even
I want just like stilts that I can just walk on. I don't want.
Oh man,
a little tiny.
Like I mentioned, you guys, Belinda was or is the founder of the Portland Queer Comedy Festival, soon to be the Rose City Queer Festival, right?
Yeah.
And Rose City, is that Portland?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Portland's known as the Rose City. In fact, we have a Rose Festival every year that's been going on for like 100 years or something.
That's so funny.
And then we also have a Rose Garden up in Washington Park that is world renowned. That's giant size. If you ever get to go, it's beautiful. And in fact, there used to be a really great drag show every summer called Peacock in the Park, and it happened in the Rose Garden. So they have this stage in this big amphitheater that holds like 5,000 people, and so it was a big all day drag show, and it benefits Audrey M. Edwards Scholarship Fund, which is a scholarship fund for queer and queer adjacent, meaning they were raised by queer people, kids to go to college. So you could like apply and get a scholarship.
Yeah, that's so nice.
Yeah.
Pasadena, California here, is the Rose Parade, and it's known for I don't know if it's called the City of Roses, but there's a lot of roses, a lot of rose gardens and stuff. But I never heard that about Portland. And I've been to Portland many times. I thought Portland was known for its bats underneath the bridges.
No, that's Austin.
Oh. I know. You're absolutely right.
I lived in Austin.
I used to be a flight attendant, so I've been to a lot of cities.
Oh,
and
hey, that's cool.
I
just thought
get
I
them.
would like that job too. That's cool.
I do get them confused. All right, you guys, you can find Belinda over there on Instagram at Belinda Comedy. All right, you guys, wherever you are, put your hands together for the very talented Belinda Carroll.
So I came out when I was 14 years old. And so backstory. My mom is a Southern Missionary Baptist, and my brothers, I have 3 brothers, and they're all older than me. It's 20, 10, and 7 years older than me, so quite a few years older than me. And so I have several.
You have a brother 20 years older than you? Same parents.
Yeah.
Same mom.
Yeah. And so, so I was the surprise baby. My mom actually thought that she was going through menopause. And so she was 3 months pregnant before she even knew she was pregnant, because she thought she was just in menopause. She was like, oh, I guess I'm in menopause.
Gosh.
And so she went to the doctor, and then they were like, no, you're pregnant. And so,
wow.
And so anyway, so when I was born into a family where I was much younger than everybody else, except for my nieces and nephews. So my brother had a kid 4 months before I was born. So I had a niece before I was even born. And so I grew up with my nieces and nephews kind of being, my nieces we had mostly girls, but my nieces like essentially being my sisters.
Friends, yeah, sisters.
And so because my brothers were like these, hugely older people. So I didn't know how to deal with it. But my oldest brother is a staunch Republican still to this day. I haven't talked to him since 2008. And, it's fine. So he's a staunch Republican. My mom's missionary Southern Baptist. So I grew up with like Rush Limbaugh playing in the background. Like we watched Trendy Broadcast Network. We watch all the evangelical Christians, all the Jimmy Swaggart, and do you remember those guys? Jimmy Swaggart,
yeah. Tammy Faye,
and Jim Baker, and all those guys, and Pat Robertson, the whole jam. And so as I'm growing up, like I'm realizing that I'm gay, and so I guess I told my mom back when I was like 6 years old. I said, I want to marry a girl just like you someday, and she goes, "You can't marry me. You have to marry a boy." And I said, well, then I'm not getting married. But she didn't connect that. She was just like, oh, she's just being a kid, So anyway, so I get to about, 12, 13, I'm starting to realize that I'm gay, right? And I'm like, what do I do? Because I'm in love with my best friend. And my best friend was Charity Cook, and she was lovely. But anyway, so she and I became friends, and then I realized I was gay. And so I was like, how do I tell my mom? So I spent probably 2 years just obsessing, and I have ADD, so I obsess over things. And so I spent like 2 years obsessing over like, am I gay? Am I not gay? Like whatever. And so I started dating this guy named Sam, and his mom was actually bisexual and had been in a relationship with a woman. And so his uncles, Steve and David, they had been together for like 25 years. They were adorable and stuff, but I had never been around gay people. So I kind of had this like question, and then I started dating Sam. And so I started going over to his parents' house and like whatever. And I started meeting like all these like positive gay role models. Right. And so I'm like, oh yeah, I think I'm gay, and I think I need to come out, So I started learning about coming out. I'm talking to Sam through this, and actually Sam really helped me come out, because I got to learn all of these things. And so time goes on. My brother who's 10 years older than me is getting married. And so he's having like a proper wedding, church wedding, like the whole thing. And, so my mom goes to the bachelorette party like the night before the wedding, and she comes home and she brings me, she has no idea that I'm gay this time. She brings me a Chippendales poster because they went to go see the Chippendales. And so she brings me a poster, and she thinks she's being the cool mom. She's like, oh yeah, I'm the coolest mom on the planet. Cause she was really trying, cause she knew that her way
connect.
She knew her way of being back in West Virginia wasn't jive into now, so she was like trying really hard to like be now, and so she brings me this Chippendales poster, and she sits it down in front of my bedroom, and I come out and she goes, I got you a Chippendales poster from the bachelorette party, and I burst into tears and I ran to the bathroom.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I'm in the bathroom and she's like, and she's like, what the fuck is going on? Cause I'm like, I'm Miss Cheery. If I'm crying, there's a thing wrong, And so she's like, what's going on? And so I come out of the bathroom and it's like 2 hours later. So everybody's like knocking on the door, like, Belinda, what's going on? I'm just like sobbing. And so I come out and I'm sitting there and she's like, what's wrong? And I went, I'm gay. And she says, Belinda, you are too feminine to be a lesbian. And I said, no, I'm pretty sure that there's feminine lesbians out there, Mom. And she's like, well, I've never seen one. Like we knew any gay people. And, or like, anybody you knew was gay back then was butch or like very gay presenting, right? That's how you'd know somebody was gay. You didn't know like regular people were gay. And like that's how kind of everybody thought. And so she was shocked. And she said, well, I don't know how I feel about this, but, just don't bring home any of those boxer short lesbians. And she meant butch women. And ironically, that's exactly who I'm into. And so she had to take that back. And so then she just started like talking to me about the Bible and like whatever. So it was like years of that. It was years of being like constantly encouraged to date men. And like, I broke up with my first girlfriend and my sister-in-law was like, so now that you broke up with your girlfriend, are you going to start dating guys? And I'm like, no. And I was like 19. And so we dated from like 17 to 19 and then we broke up and she's like, and I was like, no. And so it was constantly that. It was just like constantly. My mom would point out guys and be like, see, he's looking at you. Like I thought the problem is I wasn't attractive or something. So anyway, when I came out, my mom was like shocked and also very upset for a long time. But what I did, because I'm a contrarian, this is how I became an activist actually, is that I got involved with some Reed College students. So there's a, if you've been to Portland, maybe you know about Reed, but Reed is a college, that's a liberal arts college in, Portland, and it's renowned, it's expensive, like whatever. And so I got involved with a bunch of college kids and I'm like 15 and, that were protesting. And so this was like Measure 9. So, Measure 9 was being battled out at the time. And I talked about it a little bit earlier, but it was an anti-gay measure that would have, defined homosexuality as, against the law and whatever.
Right.
And so, when that happened, they were protesting across the street. I lived on Woodstock, which is kind of like a kind of a hip area in Portland. And there was a place, I won't mention the name of the business because I could get sued, but they're still around. But the owner of that business actually backed Measure 9 and backed Lon Mabon, who was the head person in charge of Measure 9. He was the president of the Oregon Citizens Alliance, which is the organization that brought Measure 9 to pass. And so, so they were protesting that place. And so I just wandered up and I was like, what's going on? And so they told me. And so I'd come out like 3 weeks before and I was like, I'm gay. And they were like, you are? Cause I'm like, I've got like hair down to my waist and I'm wearing like a poet's top and like a velvet skirt. And they're like, what? Yeah. And so they were like, oh, we'll come to our next like conscious racism thing, down at Reed. And so I did. And so I helped them make signs and like whatever. And that's kind of how I got involved with activism.
Yeah, the community.
Yeah. And so, and it was such a great experience. But I was, stark terrified because I like literally been taught that gay people were scary, that gay people were horrible, that they would, steal your children and take your money and like, all the things. And that there was a reason to be scared. There was just like this fear around gay people. And so when I first started going there, and then later through my first girlfriend, got involved with the Lesbian Avengers, at first I was like seriously terrified because of the way I was raised. And it was like, it was like, how am I supposed to reconcile who I am with who I grew up with? Because these are all my people, you know? And so that was like a really difficult time. But the thing that came out of it was I kept being myself around my mom and talking to her about Measure 9 and like what was going on. And then when Measure 9 was defeated, later it was like Measure 33 or whatever. But I kept just bringing gay things home. I just kept bringing like P-flag pamphlets and books about when your daughter comes out and like whatever. And so I just kept doing that, whatever. And so years later, she comes up to me and she's like, and this is like when I was like 23. So I've been out like almost 10 years. And
how old is she?
And she's, well, if I'm 23, she's 64. And so she said, you know, I'm glad you're gay because you never let anybody define you.
That's exciting.
Yeah. So that was really great because it was like, it taught me that anybody can change. Sorry. You know, the thing is that's what's bothered me about the Florida bill is that there's going to be a bunch of kids that grew up the same way, you know?
Yeah.
And that's just so heartbreaking because, you know, we worked and fought for so long and so hard to have a society where people could openly be themselves.
Right.
And
there's been so much ground gained. And now he's pushing it all the way back.
Yeah. And it's not just him. It's so many of these right wingers that are like forcibly, you know, between abortion rights and between, you know, whatever,
it's just so
forcibly pushing it back. It's just so it's because we have to be careful about who the people in power. And when Trump became president and he decided that there was no such thing as the truth and that, you know, fake news and all of the bullshit being, you know, spouted on Fox News and that kind of thing. And then those people live in a bubble where they only watch Fox News because they think everything else is a lie because they've been taught everything else is a lie. You know, you're setting up kids that are, you know, just figuring out their identity. You're setting them up to believe that they're flawed and they're broken.
Right.
And they're not.
Right.
You know? And so that's the whole thing.
Well, hopefully, you know, we have to hope that these kids have internet access. That at least they have movies. They have, you know, some sense of the outside world from that crazy place of Florida.
But the thing is, what you have to understand is that that type of people, they control everything in your life. So when I was a kid, like my mom.
Well, the TV was a great example. Was always on. Jimmy Swagger and those guys. Yeah. It's a good example.
But then you weren't allowed to watch anything else. So like I wasn't allowed to watch He-Man or the Smurfs because it was of the devil, right? Because it was talking about magic. It was talking about things being otherworldly. And so, but that's the thing is that they control those things especially when you're a kid, you know? Yeah. Especially when you're like, you know, 12, 13, 14 years old. There's nothing you can do but listen to what your parents are saying, you know? And so, but that's the thing is that, you know, going to school and like seeing positive gay role models when you're, you know, first realizing that you're gay is really important to like good mental health.
And helpful. And of course.
Yeah. You know, so anyway, but
I want to go back to when you said that your mother said you didn't let anyone define you. Do you think that was also her acknowledging that had been her life?
Oh yeah, yeah. So my mom grew up obviously, you know, pre-feminism, and so she had a couple of husbands. Her first husband was my oldest brother's dad, and then my other brothers and me all came through the same dad. And when my dad left when I was like 3, and it ended up being fine. I ended up way more well-adjusted than my brothers because of it. But when my dad left, you know, my dad left and he like took everything out of the bank accounts. He just, because you could do that because when you're way back then,
women didn't even have, we didn't have 50%.
Account.
Right.
Well, no. And then on top of that, even if your bank account was in your name, if you were married to a man, that man could go to the bank and be like, I want that money. And they would give it to him. And it did not matter. Isn't that dumb?
Isn't
and
that
it didn't
wild?
matter that it was in your name. It didn't matter if it was a joint checking account. It didn't matter. If you were a woman, you had no right to say anything about your own money or anything. So my brother, so like, so my dad got credit cards and like all sorts of stuff. And then just a Mountie, and so, but that's the thing. So anyway, but that's what they want to go back to is that kind of thing where women don't have any kind of control over their lives at all. And we think that was like forever ago, right? You go, oh, that was like, back in the olden days. It really wasn't. And it was like in the 70s. Right. And also, it's very easy to wind back those things. And you wouldn't think so because you go, oh, well, there's the women in power. And but the thing is that, they chip away, and they'll get as far as they can get. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, of course. And there's just the balance. There's no balance of power. There's still 2 senators in Montana, and I think there's 10,000 people there. I mean, the system is broken. It goes so far being just beyond me. And I was a flight attendant, and I do this bit on stage where I talk about, I'm a flight attendant. I've been all over the country, but there's 48 states I don't ever want to go to again. I'm just not interested in those states. I like California. I like Hawaii. That's about it. I mean, I like the bubble I'm in, but I do know that it's a privilege. I feel privileged to live in California. I really do.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Oh no, for sure. Yeah. And people are, why are you upset? You don't live in, Tennessee. Yeah. But I know people that live in Tennessee,
course. It's the whole thing.
We can't all live in California.
Yeah.
Our rent's already expensive enough without everybody moving here, And so, and so it's going to be really interesting to see what happens with it. My hope is that we can rise above it and win.
Me too.
Because it took a long time. It took up until it took such a long time, and it's not even like Stonewall. Everybody knows about Stonewall, 1969,
right.
And kind of the catalyst for the modern day gay rights movement. But the thing is that it started way before Stonewall, 200 years before Stonewall.
Sure.
There were people, fighting for their rights. And so it's just, it's wacky.
It just sucks that it's ongoing. It just sucks.
Well, and you think that you get, like 2015, and I'll admit this, 2015, and there's people that were like, I told you, but 2015, when gay marriage passed federally, there was kind of this attitude like, oh, we're done. We did it.
Yeah, I know. See, that's so true.
And
boy, that's so true. And then they just, yeah.
So,
Well, I am so happy to have met you, Belinda Carroll. You are so talented. What a great way, the way you told the story. Very, very good. I mean, it was natural and interesting, and I could picture things. Have you told the story like on stage? Is that like a piece?
No. I actually have never told that story in media. I was trying to think of a story that I hadn't told before.
Wow. Thank you.
So, yeah.
Thank you, because that was very, very interesting.
Thank you.
And you totally could do, the one-person show, There's a lot of options.
Yeah, I actually do want to have a one-person show at some point. I just have to make TV and film pop so I can afford.
It'll all happen. It's all happening. I hear you, but it's going to happen.
Thank you.
You'll see. All right, you guys, we got to wrap it up. I want to remind you that we are playing Story Smash on May 20th at the Lyric Hyperion, so check that out at storysmashshow.com. And, of course, follow storyworthypodcast.com, and you can get on my mailing list. Hooray! You guys can find Belinda over there on Instagram at Belinda Comedy, and, of course, follow Storyworthy over there as well at Storyworthy. All right, you guys, one more time on behalf of the very talented Belinda Carroll, thank you.
Yay. Thanks for having me on.
All right, you guys, my name is Christine Blackburn saying, make it a story-worthy week.
You can follow me, for joining us on the Storyworthy podcast. We'll be back next week with all new stories. Subscribe to Storyworthy on iTunes and visit the Storyworthy website at storyworthypodcast.com.
When you download the Baker's app, you have easy access to savings every day. Get the most out of weekly sales and receive personalized coupons to save on your favorite items, all while earning 1 fuel point for every dollar spent. Baker's makes it easy to save while you shop, whether it's in-store or online, so you get the most value out of every trip, every time. Download the Baker's app now to save big on your next purchase. Baker's, fresh for everyone. Must have a digital account to redeem offers. Restrictions may apply. See site for details.
Woodhouse Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram is bringing you more power, capability, and savings with the full lineup of new Ram trucks during the Black Friday sales event going on all month long. Lease a 2024 Ram 1500 Crew Cab Bighorn for $429 per month. Visit our 2 convenient metro locations in Blair or Bellevue or online anytime. Lease for 42 months, 10,000 miles per year with approved credit. Tax, title, license extra. $2,500 down plus first payment and $299 doc fee to its signing. Example stock number BC230242. Offer expires 11/30/2023. See dealer for details.